Remember when you were young and the world seemed so alive? When things seemed to just be okay? Why don't things feel like that anymore? Why does it feel like we're poisoned? Like we're slowly bleeding everything we are into nothingness? Don't you find yourself in search of the nostalgic? For something that seems comforting and familiar? We all are. We all look back at what once was, playing board games with your friends even though you didn't actually understand the rules, lying on the couch watching reruns of cartoons that no one even remembers anymore. Sometimes you try to go back to how things were. Maybe go play old video games even though no one is left online. You walk in the woods, waiting for that sense of childhood wonder and excitement to strike your chest once again. But it's never quite the same, is it? Are we just old? Or is it something else? Sir John Bagot Glubb was a British military officer and historian who popularized the idea that empires last 250 years in his essay, The Fate of Empires in Search for Survival. He describes the final period before collapse as decadence, and describes its key elements here. Defensiveness and pacifism. The empire, despite its wealth, becomes unwilling to fight and sees violence as purely immoral. Pessimism. A general feeling of hopelessness about the future and of the empire's own values. Materialism. Caring only about earthly pleasures and money. Frivolity. Constantly seeking distraction and avoiding difficult things that need to be done. Influx of foreigners. Massive immigration, particularly centered on the great cities of the empire. This introduces new divisions. Finally, weakening of religion, moving away from sacrifice and metaphysics and towards selfishness and nihilism. You are dying. I see in you all the characteristic stigma of decay. I can prove to you that your great wealth and your great poverty, your capitalism and your socialism, your wars and your revolutions, your atheism and your pessimism, and your cynicism, your immorality, your broken down marriages, your birth control, that is bleeding you from the bottom and killing you off at the top in your brains. I can prove to you that those were characteristic marks of the dying ages of ancient states, Alexandria and Greece, and neurotic Rome. Oswald Spengler. Oswald Spengler was born in 1880, and his masterwork, The Decline of the West, was released in 1918. In it, he explained that nations are like biological creatures, like you and me. He used seasons to explain this idea. Spring represents birth. This is a time of myth, religious development, and artistic fervor. In spring, everything that makes up a nation is already present and teeming with vigor. This is the nation at its most idyllic. It truly believes in its principles, without a hint of irony or doubt. Myth is not something to be studied and analyzed in a book. Myth is reality. The hierarchy is clear, and life is heroic and truly beautiful despite its pain. Or perhaps because of it. Spring, in essence, is raw but unfocused power and creativity. Summer is what happens when you focus that raw energy. This is when the nation reaches its peak performance. It creates its masterworks, its unbelievable inventions, and its most enduring philosophies. People still believe in the founding principles of the nation, but they are more focused and looking outward at the world, looking to expand and grow. Autumn, a time of harvest. During this time, art will reach its zenith. A certain sense of refinement will be present here, but also an undeniable, self-critical shadow will be present underneath every new beauty that is created. People become overly rational and enlightened. The myth is fading. That raw vitality present in spring is slowly draining from the nation, like blood oozing from a brutal wound. Winter may not be exactly what you think. It's not a sudden death. It is not an impending apocalyptic doom. It's not even a zombie apocalypse, as cool as that sounds. No. It is a slow, heart-wrenching death of the soul, the complete loss of coherence as a culture. As torchbearers of our myth, the flame is gradually fading into the abyssal darkness that dissolves us into a mere shadow of what we were. It is not an outward death. It is an inward death. Oswald himself gave specific examples of what this might look like. Megacities, money, power, intellect, and bureaucracy as the ruling ideals. Democracy, mass media, nihilism and skepticism, declining birth rates, cultural exhaustion, vulgarity, non-stop irony, and quantity over quality. We are living in the winter of the West. Isn't it cold? Was there snow where you grew up? There was lots of snow where I grew up. When I was a kid, it would sometimes find its way into my boots while I was playing. It wouldn't melt. It would just stick to my socks. My mom would always get mad at me, because I'd end up tracking water all over the house. But she would always make me hot chocolate anyways. Days like that are behind me now, aren't they? Isn't it childish to remember things like that so fondly? Maybe it is. But it just feels so cold now. Spangler was right about the birth rates too, although I'm not sure he thought of how we would try to solve that problem. Immigration. The native US total fertility rate is hovering around 1.6. The replacement rate is 2.1. So that means that the native US population would naturally decline. But we can't allow that for a wide variety of economic reasons. So instead, we ship in immigrants from around the world to fill in the gaps here. Though it varies by group, the average foreign-born immigrant has a TFR of 2.19, with sub-Saharan Africans having 2.5 to 3 plus on average. By 2040, the country will reach majority minority, meaning no group in the country will be more than 50%. By 2060, white people will only be around 44% of the population. The face of the nation will shift. According to Robert Putnam's landmark study E Pluribus Unum from 2007, those in the most diverse neighborhoods trusted each other about half as much as those in homogeneous ones. Over the coming years, America is likely to see a rise in more open border policies, social welfare, crime, and severe tribalism, all stemming from increased immigration. The ship of Theseus is a paradox that asks one to ponder the idea of identity. If a ship is damaged over time, and all the pieces are gradually replaced, is it the same ship anymore? Or is it a new one entirely? When does America cease to be America? Has it already happened 1,000 times before, and we're just seeing yet another death? What do they do to the old parts they replaced on that ship? Did they just throw them out somewhere in the sea, left to bloat and decay in the vast, endless, torrential waves? I'd like to think they kept them somewhere. But no one wants old, battered pieces of a ship that don't go together anymore, do they? Maybe as a souvenir of something that was but no longer is. I wonder what the ones who built it would think. During the final days of the drafting of the Constitution at Independence Hall, a woman and friend of George Washington named Elizabeth Willing Powell asked Benjamin Franklin, "What have we got? A republic or a monarchy?" Franklin responded to her, "A republic, if you can keep it." The Founding Fathers were quite skeptical of democracy, generally seeing them as corruptible and given to eventual decay and collapse if any one thing went wrong. Democracies are a delicate balancing act, solely driven by the people comprising them. They made a republic to try and mitigate the issues with democracies. However, especially in our modern era, the weaknesses are certainly still there. And at its heart, the people and their emotions are still king. John Adams wrote to officers of the 1st Brigade of the 3rd Division of the Militia of Massachusetts, "Because we have no government armed with power capable of contending with human passions, unbridled by morality and religion, avarice, ambition, revenge, or gallantry would break the strongest cords of our Constitution, as a whale goes through a net. Our Constitution was made only for a moral and religious people. It is wholly inadequate to the government of any other." The people who comprise the populace in a republic are the government in a republic. They vote for what they want, and generally they get it. Bring in new people with new ideas, and suddenly things will look very different from how they did before. Immigration, at the scale to which we are engaged, will necessarily change everything about the nation in which we live. This is not a matter of trying new foods from different places from around the world. It is much bigger than that. This is about how you live and are governed, and about how your children will live and be governed. The old planks thrown off to the sea dissolve and erode into mulch and then to dust. The new ship carries on sailing through the winds, never once considering the devastation of the old. Despite all we have done, we are doomed to be that old piece of battered lumber, sailing in our own way across the sea and into the boundless and infinite chronicles of history. This place will never be what it once was again, will it? Why? Why can't it be? This far into winter, what is left to save? The fields are frozen, and the ground is unbreaking. Is there nothing left to do? Nothing left to say? As we dreadfully slog through the snow and biting cold. All our myths have been desecrated, and all our virtues made parody. Do we simply retreat into those old days of snowy socks and hot chocolate? Find shelter only in delusional nostalgia of a time long since abandoned? Spengler wrote also, "We are born into this time, and must bravely follow the path to the destined end. There is no other way. Our duty is to hold on to the lost position, without hope, without rescue, like that Roman soldier whose bones were found in front of a door in Pompeii, who, during the eruption of Vesuvius, died at his post because they forgot to relieve him. That is greatness also, to have the power to be crushed and not to yield." What if I refuse to be crushed? What if I refuse all that came before and all that is yet to come to me? Damn you all for everything you never did. Damn you all for your lack of will, your lack of care. Where is your spirit? Where is your strength? Where is your valor? How many of you would even have the guts to be crushed? I don't think we can ever get back exactly what we had. We must first accept our deaths before we can forge something new. A hand pierces through the earth and drags its undead body out of its premature grave. We are not dead yet. We refuse to die. The path out of that dark graveyard is twisted and branching, with dead ends and traps that tear your soul out of your chest and render your heart a burden. The right path is not one of Nietzschean power or despair. It is not accepting that God is dead or never existed, and it is not succumbing to skepticism and killing the mystical nature of the world. The only path to restoring what it is we had is to craft new myths, forge new heroes. How do we do that? What can I do as just one person? The West now lives in an ironic stupor, living on the fumes of our old beliefs and constantly ridiculing truth and laughing at the genuine. Seek the authentic. Reject irony completely. Embrace only sincerity. This modern age wants to turn everything into some silly joke. Refuse it. The West now prizes weakness and kindness over everything else. Being a pathetic worm does not make you virtuous. Embrace strength and honor. These virtues alone will make you a greater man than most will ever be. The West now disenchants the world. It destroys the religious and the spiritual under the boot of pure rationalism. Accept God and the metaphysical realm. You are not the center of the universe, and never will be. Accept God into your life, and let the world be magical once more. We are not just old. You're not just feeling nostalgic. You're remembering what it was like when your culture was alive. You're remembering what it felt like to live in a nation that wasn't ashamed of itself. You're remembering what it felt like when you weren't the object of constant parody. You're remembering what it felt like to be alive in a time where things made at least a little more sense than they do now. Happy birthday, America. May this not only be a celebration of our continued survival, but the coronation of a new American spirit.